Good morning, Knicks Nation. Today is Friday. Happy Friday, August the 26th, 2022. I hope this Friday finds you safe and healthy, and that the same could be said for your family. I hope that you and your family are being provided for in terms of food, shelter, clothing, as well as your health. Blessings upon those that work in the healthcare field along with the first responders on every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, have one goal: to save human lives. Blessings also upon those that pick up garbage for us to keep streets, sidewalks, highways, parks clean, and those that make deliveries, especially food and things that are necessary for our lives that we take for granted for our convenience. Double blessings on the men and women that are trying to help rescue, deliver, and recover the teenagers and children that are the victims in every state and in every county in the United States of child molestation and pedophilia. Those also that are victims of pornography and child pornography. Those also that are victims of human trafficking and sex slavery. Those also that are victims of prostitution and child prostitution. And double curses on the perpetrators, the profiteers, and those perverts that traffic in this human misery. Finally, blessings upon the homeless. Nearly 600,000 men, women, and children living on the streets of the United States of America, growing up on the streets, and millions around the world in similar or worse conditions. And blessings upon them, for theirs is the kingdom. Based on the news yesterday with the New York Knicks, I wanted to discuss today kind of a part B to yesterday, and that would be Julius Randle. I think Julius Randle, let's put it this way. The New York Knicks, because of the largeness and the influence of Knicks Nation. And I want y'all to understand, Knicks Nation, you are influential. You are large. You have more power than you realize because of the sheer numbers of you, which is why you get clowns on big platforms trying to manipulate what you're supposed to feel like and what you're supposed to know and what you're not supposed to know. And don't fall for the okie doke. The Knicks Nation is probably, in terms of pro basketball, the most influential crew in the planet in terms of pro basketball. Now, that is why earlier in James Dolan's tenure as owner over the 20 years, that is why a lot of dumb moves were made. Now, I'm not trying to blame Knicks Nation, no way. But what I am saying is Knicks Nation yelling had influence on James Dolan's decisions. Okay? Knicks Nation yelling, and then platforms from, people again from big platforms that really don't know much about basketball but have big mouths. They would influence him to do things like go to LA and force the Carmelo Anthony deal to get done when he wasn't supposed to do that, or allow trades to get made, or hang on to people that he felt close to, even if they didn't know what they were doing in the front office, Isaiah Thomas and others like that. So that is the power of Knicks Nation. Now, what Mr. Dolan has done, really he was trying to do this from Phil Jackson. When he hired Phil Jackson, he went out there to the boondocks, I think it was Montana somewhere, to find Phil Jackson or Wyoming, wherever he was hanging out, and tried to convince him to come run the Knicks. Because he wanted to hand the keys over to somebody, because at that point, Dolan realized he don't know what he was doing in terms of basketball. So he figured a guy that won so many rings with two different teams and has so much experience, bring him in and let him just have the keys. And at first, multiple times, Jackson said no. Jackson kept saying no. And Dolan's mistake was kept raising the ante until he got to $60 million. And then Jackson said yes, like you and I would have. Oh yeah, I'll come to New York for $60 million. I'll leave my little ranch in the middle of Podunk and come out here. Now the problem, of course, is Phil Jackson being a legendary coach because he had Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, had no idea what he was doing in the front office. And that showed. He was right in a couple of areas, but he didn't seem committed, falling asleep, doing scouting ventures and not being involved as he should. But he was smart. Like, for example, he was the one talking about trading Kristaps Porzingis. Whenever, or I was thinking, you must be crazy. But as it turned out, that would have been a good deal if he did it, because teams were going to offer the moon at that time for KP, because KP skipped out on his end of season meeting. So he wasn't that crazy, but he was crazy enough so that Dolan, despite of himself, had to step in and fire him, right? Then he put Steve Mills in charge, a guy that he been working with for a long time. Steve Mills is still in the Madison Square Garden organization. Steve Mills, who, I know of his family. I played against his brother, a couple of his brothers when I was in high school. I knew of the Steve Mills family. Steve Mills was always, I've never met him, but he's always been a hero of mine. Steve, have you seen this? When he went to Princeton to see a black man go to Princeton and play ball for Carrill at that time was big time for me. It inspired me. And so I remember him from then. Roosevelt, Long Island. Everybody in Hempstead knew the Mills. So I was kind of happy at the time to see a homeboy, be in that position. But, one of the things, he did some good things, some bad things. He went and signed $1 million power forwards at the time. He signed Tim Hardaway. I didn't think the Tim Hardaway deal was a bad signing because he was expecting KP to be a number one option. But one thing he did do that was good. He stopped the train of giving away first round picks, and he promised to do that, and he did that. He did not give away first round picks. He collected first round picks. He traded KP and he collected first round picks. Smart move, I believe. Still a smart move. Wasn't going to sign him to $150 million when he was so injury prone. That was a smart move. So he did good, did bad, but overall, I rank him as a C plus B minus president of basketball operations. But even he was in over his head. You understand, Knicks Nation. The president of basketball operations for the New York Knicks is the most high-pressure job in pro basketball on earth, period, end of story. Not in pro sports now. Probably the GM for the Yankees would beg to differ, or the GM for the Giants. But as far as pro basketball, there's no more pressure on anybody than either the Knicks or the Lakers. I would have to put them in that category as well. So that's a high-pressure job. It was a little over Steve Mills' head, and he knew it. He didn't get fired as much as he just removed himself or was removed from that position. He's still in the MSC organization. Then we finally get to Leon Rose, a.k.a. the Don. And that was the smartest move Mr. Dolan has made. He had been trying to keep hands off, and he did. And he hands the keys to Leon Rose. And Leon Rose, in the 2 years, to me, has proved himself wise, shrewd, smart, has a plan, does not deal with the New York media, and is doing his thing. Now, has he been perfect? No. And if you in Knicks Nation expect him to be perfect, y'all need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, because nobody's perfect. Okay? Did he make some mistakes? Yes, he did. But overall, he is guiding the Knicks culture and organization in the right direction. If you had to say, are the Knicks going in the right direction or the wrong direction? I would definitely say, emphatically, they're going in the right direction. And that started with Leon Rose. He put a crew around him like a Brock Aller or Walt Perrin. He kept Scott Perry. And then he put a crew around him. He signed Tom Thibodeau, which, again, some people question, and I can understand. Thibodeau is not a coach for a group of young people that the Knicks had drafted. Okay, maybe that was a mistake, but we got him. Okay. Then he went and made some signings to appease Thibodeau that didn't work out too well. Okay. And then he went and he drafted Obi Toppin. Again, let's go over this story. That was his first year at the helm. He wanted a power forward. He did not want, and this is today's topic, he did not want Julius Randle. He wanted Obi Toppin. He drafts Obi Toppin at 8 to be the starting power forward long-term for the New York Knicks. At that same time, Tom Thibodeau, who is a lover of veterans, all veterans, goes to Dallas and meets with Julius Randle and decides this is my guy going into my first season as head coach. That was a difference. Julius Randle, being in a contract year that year, outperforms his previous 7 years in the league and becomes all NBA, all-star. Okay. The Knicks go to the 4th seed. That was him outperforming that was the outlier for his career because he outperformed all of his years in that year. That was the only year that he was on a team that was a winning record. And he had a point guard, a personal point guard in Elfrid Payton, because Elfrid Payton wasn't the point guard for everybody else, but he was the personal point guard for Julius Randle. That year, because it was a contract year, was the only year since I've been watching Julius Randle at LA. I didn't really see him at Kentucky, but since he came in the league with LA, then to New Orleans now, that's the only year he's played defense on a consistent basis. The only year. And that was the big difference to me. All of the other statistics, you see them, the rebounds, the points and all of that, the assists, the point forward thing and all of that. But to me, the thing that I never seen from him before or since is a consistent effort on the defensive end. That year, that was the shock to me. The first time I saw it was a preseason game that year against Cleveland. I don't think he even scored double figures that game, but I told everybody then, we got a different Julius Randle now because he was pushing himself on the defensive end. Okay? Since then, he has not done it. Last year, he did not do it. And he reverted back to the high turnover, lackadaisical defense, forcing bad shots that we had seen previous years. Talent-wise, again, there is no doubt Julius Randle has high-level NBA talent. The power, the speed, the nimbleness. He's a bull, and he can bully ball you. And when his shot is falling, he's pretty much unguardable when his shot is falling, right? But the attitude came out last year. See, he showed a lack of leadership last year. He showed an immaturity level last year. He showed he did not take accountability for these faults last year. This had nothing to do with his physical talent, but his mental makeup. To be great, you got to have both the physical and the mental. You gotta be high level on both areas. Lots of cats that could play ball that are talented could come in the NBA. But to go to that next level, it's a mental game. Okay? He lost that game last year. He did not play well, and it reflected in our record. See, everybody likes to point to 20 and 10. 20 and 10 means jack if you're a number one option and you don't make your teammates better. The thing in the NBA about a number one option is they make everybody around them better. Everybody becomes a higher level than they would be on any other team because of this guy being a number one option. That's a true number one option. What he proved is that he is not a number one option. RJ Barrett is more of a team leader than he is because RJ Barrett handled the media with much more aplomb than Julius Randle did. And so the question was around Knicks Nation, coming back to you. Some of y'all love in Randle Hive and just, give him another chance. And some of y'all like me are like, no, we've seen enough time to move on from him. And the question really is, what did Knicks management feel about Julius Randle? That's really the question. What does Knicks management feel about Julius Randle? See, I can have an opinion, and of course you can have an opinion, and Knicks Nation is very influential. But the difference between Leon Rose's front office and everyone before, they don't care what y'all think. They got a plan. They don't care what I think. They got a plan, a long-term sustainable winning plan, and they're following that plan. And that plan includes drafting on a high level, which they have done, accumulating picks, which they have done, and waiting for being flexible in far as salary cap so that you can jump on a possibility and opportunity that's available, like a Donovan Mitchell, when it's available and the price is right. But one thing told me a lot yesterday about how the front office feels about Julius Randle. Also how the NBA feels about him. You see, when he had the All-Star season, the All-NBA season, we were 4th overall in the East. He qualified, according to NBA rules, for a $200 million contract. Leon Rose did not sign him to $200 million. Signed him to $106, $107 million with incentives that could go to $117. That's what he was signed for. Basically half what he was eligible for. That told me that he's not worth $200 million because if he was, he wouldn't have signed that deal. He would have gone in the open market and tried to get $200 million, but he didn't do that. And everybody, including myself, painted it as maybe he's being loyal to the Knicks. No. As we look back, no, it wasn't that. He couldn't get no more than that. Why? we're not the only ones noticing there are issues with Julius Randle. And this was illustrated yesterday in a strong way. When the Athletic reported, now I'm not putting the Athletic, except for Shams, on any high pedestal, but it was reported, this was the report, that Leon Rose refused to attach first round picks in the Julius Randle trade. Why is that important? Let me ask you a question, Knicks Nation. Let's put Donovan Mitchell's on the market, right? I think we all agree Donovan Mitchell's on the trade market. Is Danny Ainge having to attach first round picks to move Donovan Mitchell? I know you laugh, right? No. Why? Because Donovan Mitchell has great value. And the key is how many first round picks is he going to get for Donovan Mitchell, right? Same could be said for a number of players. If Bam Adebayo, who's not on the level of a superstar, but a definite star, $100 million player, if Miami wanted to trade him, would they have to attach first round picks? No. How about Darius Garland? No. Of course, Kawhi Leonard? No. So there are guys that are so good, so valuable, so revered around the league that it's only a matter of how many picks you getting. But with Julius Randle, a statement has to be made. We're not attaching first round picks to move him. Which tells you teams are saying, oh, we'll take Julius Randle, but you need to give us a first round pick for us to take him. Which tells me two things. Number one, his value is not even worth the $117 million that he signed, which is disappointing. And he hurt his value badly last year with his attitude. Number two, the Knicks will trade him for the right deal. And it doesn't have to be an astronomical deal. They'll trade him. In other words, he's not untouchable to the New York Knicks front office. They will move him. They just refuse to have to give up first round picks because the Don is savvy. He will give up Julius Randle for the right price, but he's not giving up picks for Randle. Which tells me number three, we might be stuck with him. Okay, we might be stuck with him. And that's a bad thing. Why is it a bad thing? If the Knicks, if A and B are true, in other words, if they would move him, but B, they're not giving away picks to move him, but teams are devaluing him, saying you need to give us a pick to take him. That means C, the Knicks would rather play Obi Toppin. They drafted him, they'd rather start him and play him. And in fact, if somebody did agree to take on Randle's contract without attached picks, Obi Toppin would be a starting power forward. They'd rather play Obi Toppin. Just by logic. Okay, let's follow that again. If A, the Knicks can't trade him unless you attach picks. That was this report. And B, they're not going to attach picks. They'll send him out. Because it already been reported they offered him to Utah and LA. Nobody wanted him. They didn't want him. Okay? For various reasons. Like the Utah deal, Ainge ain't taking on nobody's long-term deal. And then the B, LA, they already got AD and LeBron could play the four, so they want shooters. Those two things understood. They didn't want him. But see, I don't hear anybody else knocking on the door either. Now, there's other possibilities. Phoenix could use a power forward. We know the situation in Charlotte. They could use a power forward. Miami could use a power forward, a real power forward. Okay. So you got teams that could use power forward. All right. But nobody's knocking down the door to get Randle. They're probably asking for picks to take him. Okay. So that is a problem, which leads me to the next issue. So now you have to be careful how you handle him. Because you're obligated to him for $100 million. If he comes through with another attitude-y season, now you can't trade him. You can't play him. This is a very critical situation for both the Knicks and Julius Randle. If you're Julius Randle, okay, you're guaranteed $100 million, but your reputation is now on the line. You had a bad year last year with your rep. Bad year. Okay, nobody can deny last year was bad for his rep. That's what cost us to be in this situation. You really have to come through this year. You have to. For your rep. Not only that, it's also your money. See, because the revenues are going up. You can make a lot more money with a good improvement, a comeback year. I don't know what that would look like for Julius Randle. And the reason I don't know what it would look like is because in spite of his tremendous physical talent, he does not have a high basketball IQ. He definitely does not. He has trouble recognizing when he should get rid of the basketball out of double teams. He has trouble with that. Okay. And of course, people can get in his head. And in the NBA, they will take advantage of that. This is the league. They take advantage of any opportunity they can to get you. And they will get in his head. Okay. Number 3, he really is not a number 1 option in all honesty. With all his talent, he's not a number 1 option. But as a number 2 and number 3, I believe Julius Randle will be dangerous as a number 3 option. Reason being is because if you got to focus on JB, you got to focus on Cam or RJ or on Mitchell if he's on the Knicks especially. And you leave weaknesses on the opposite side of the ball, the weak side of the court, with Julius Randle with somebody that he could just have to go one-on-one with, he's going to be tough. He's going to be tough. But the question is, will he accept that? We don't know. Julius Randle becomes a big if. Big if. If it was me, I want you to know what you think, but if it was me, I would try my best to be the 3rd option because I would be handing those reins over to RJ. And why? Because as a 3rd option, I'm going to look like an all-star. I'm going to destroy people when they have to go. When that ball swings, it's me and whoever, they're going to have a problem. Okay. When you start the offense with him, in the pinch post, they're already ready for that. They double team him. They force him to bad shots. They force him into double teams. He holds the ball too long. They want turnovers. It happens. Okay. But when you make the pinch post RJ or Brunson is initiating the offense or Donovan Mitchell is initiating the offense, now you got to pay attention to those guys. And if you don't, they'll kill you. And if you do, there's off-ball opportunity for Julius Randle. So that brings me to another point. Can Thibodeau do that? Can he create a situation where he has a Donovan Mitchell and or a Jalen Brunson, even if he has a Quentin Grimes, a Cam Reddish, and RJ Barrett? Can he create situations making them the primary on the offense and then causing Julius to be off-ball? This is one of the things that makes the San Antonio coach the master of coaches that he is. If you watch San Antonio, they could have, Pop could have, scrubs, but you watch their offense. There's always 100% of the time off ball movement. And if you don't watch them, they'll backdoor you, they'll back cut you. And they do that tremendously with a high level of execution. Okay. He demands that. That's a real offensive coach there. So if Tibbs can create some off-ball movement for Julius Randle and not start the offense with him, not allow him to dribble the ball up the floor and initiate the offense, but have him as off-ball movement. Because I guess what I'm saying is we stuck with him. I mean, unless they make a trade, we stuck with him. Okay, so you got to use him. And he's got to look good. Because if he does bounce back and the Knicks make the playoffs, maybe then you could trade him. Because Obi Toppin's the dude. So maybe then you could trade him. Okay. We're stuck with him. I think. I hope they do make a move to move him, but I think we stuck with him. Okay. Based on, because the Don ain't attaching no picks to get rid of him. That's smart though. I like that. Don't attach no picks. Hang on to your picks. Okay. But we stuck with him. So this is the deal. Can he accept the 3rd option role? Will Thibodeau create off-ball movement action so that he can become more effective, not at the point of attack, but as the ball swings in the off-ball, create weak side opportunities for him to take advantage of his size, his strength, his ability against one-on-one defenders. Look, if somebody was to put a Marcus Smart on him, I believe he would destroy Marcus Smart one-on-one. I think he will. He's too strong. He's too big and strong. And Marcus Smart was Defensive Player of the Year last year. That's what I'm saying. That's why I named him. You get him on Jason Tatum, or you get him on Duncan Robinson, it's lights out. It's game over. Okay, it's game over. You swing him that basketball and he's got 2 or 3 seconds to make a move on a dude that can't guard him. That's the high level Julius Randle right there. Okay, and then don't let his 3-point shot start falling, because then it is game over. Okay, so we have an opportunity here. It's up to Julius really, and it's up to Tom Thibodeau. We're stuck with this guy. They're not attaching picks to get rid of him, and teams ain't taking him unless they attach picks. I would love to get an expiring Kevin Love contract for Julius Randle. I would love to do that. I don't know if Cleveland wants that though. So we have to, so that's where we at. That's where we at right now. And Cleveland probably wants picks. Isn't that crazy? Kevin Love contract expiring, and we would have to give them picks to move Julius there. The Don really got to earn his money with this one, but I'm thinking we're going to have to keep him this year. And this is his opportunity, because I don't really think, honestly, that he wants to be here. Because look, seriously, last year, somebody brought up the March 23rd game with Obi. That wasn't no garbage game. The team they were playing was trying to make playoff position. And Obi went off, right? And soon after that, when Julius came on the court, people was booing. Some of y'all remember, they were booing him. When he was at the line, they were yelling, RJ Barrett. That's not going to change. See? Some of y'all that in the Randle Hive, you could, say what you want, but that's the truth. That's facts. That's what happened last year. And it could happen this year. Unless those things we just talked about, the off-ball movement, the hustle on the defensive end, especially the hustle on the defensive end, and him accepting a role in the third reel. So let RJ get his 30. If Donovan Mitchell's on the team, let him get his 30. And you take your 18 and your 12 boards, and you're the supplement to that. We'd be in good shape then, really. Because now they could double him all they want, because you got other guys that'll kill you. But if he insists on bringing the ball up, if he insists on being the focal point of the offense, if Tom Thibodeau doesn't change the philosophy offensively for the new personnel that he will have, this is going to be a difficult season. Okay. But we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that Tom makes those adjustments. Because you can't be talking about you're a student of the game and studying film and then come back with the same stuff. You can't do that. Okay. I'm hoping that if we acquire, I'm feeling better about the Mitchell acquisition for that reason only. That Mitchell would not be a third option. Mitchell would be a number one option. RJ is him and JB. That would help Randle understand you're a third option. Okay. Without Mitchell, if you put Cam and RJ in the starting lineup, it's dynamic. Or if you put Grimes and RJ in the starting lineup, it's dynamic. But I don't know how Randle, he's an unknown in terms of how will he react to that. I know Brunson is a take charge point guard. So he's going to really command that offense run the way he wants it to run. But then it depends on what Thibodeau wants. Because Brunson's Thibodeau on the floor. This is going to be interesting, Knicks Nation. But the point is, the Knicks want to trade him. And they would trade him if they didn't have to attach picks to do it. They would start Obi Toppin. That's what I came away with yesterday. They would start Obi Toppin. To me, it's an established fact that front office would trade him in a heartbeat if they could get something for him. Okay, they would. But they're not giving him away, which is smart. But it's just telling you what his market value really is. The teams around the NBA ain't knocking down the door to come get Julius Randle. Okay? Like they are for RJ Barrett, right? Or Cam Reddish. The Lakers want Cam Reddish. The Utah Jazz want RJ Barrett. See? But nobody's calling and saying, oh, how many picks you want for Julius Randle? Nobody's doing that. And the Knicks would trade him if they could and start Obi Toppin. To me, that's established. You could be Randle Hive or not, but that's the facts. They yell RJ Barrett when he's at the line. They booing him. Everybody want Obi. Everybody that comes to the Garden to watch the games, they want Obi to start. Okay, bottom line. Me too. But we got to deal with it as it is. Randle's here. Unless the Don can work some miracles, he's going to be our starting power forward opening night. Not my druthers, but real. And let's hope his head is right. And let's hope Thibodeau is right. We're going to see what happens. They're not going to sit him because that would create attitude, baby. Somebody said, well, let's just start over and sit him. You're going to have attitude. Big time attitude. Okay? And that's also, we don't want that. Anyway, here we go. We're going to see what happens Labor Day weekend. This is going to be interesting. Please be safe out there. Enjoy your weekend. So.